Margaret Jo McCullough.
And I'm Terry Rialto.
And you're listening to
Delicious Dish on National Public Radio.
Well, Terry.
That's from the Betty White episode, one of the best ones. I'm Justin Perkins. This is Talk Junkie, not NPR, and my guest today is Mandy Fugit, Mandy Fugit Scheffel, owner and proprietor of the Red Spotted Newt bookstore. And how you doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
The NPR opening seemed fitting for the WEKU story that was released today. So
that was a pretty big deal. That was pretty awesome. You want to talk a little about that? Just tell us what it was. I know you're probably tired of talking books for a little bit.
I am extremely tired of talking about me and books, and I think everybody else is probably tired of seeing me. Maybe not, though, because I think with every outlet that runs something, I get a new audience. So it's not necessarily the same people. But so Sherry Lawson from WEKU in Richmond caught wind of what was happening here at the Red Spotted Newt, and she reached out a couple of weeks ago about coming down and doing a story. And then once I started talking to her, she had no prior knowledge of like my personal history of battles with addiction or anything like that, or that I was attempting to be a writer. So she got real into the story after that, and she came down and spent about 4 hours a couple of weeks ago, and the story ran today. Kind of just my history, my redemption story, Hazard's history and redemption story. So I was pleased. I think it went well.
I know it probably does get weird for you, like, and you probably do get like a little overwhelmed with it, but I don't think other people do, because it's a really good story what you've done there, especially with that bookstore, and I'm excited about what you're writing, and it means something to the community. So I don't think people's gonna get tired of that anytime soon, because a lot of things are happening in Hazard, but you're a big part of that, and I think it's neat that that place is growing, a place I didn't know if it would ever grow again. It may be getting a little bigger than Knott County now.
Right.
The reason I played the NPR is that every time I sit down to do one of these, I think you mentioned it one time when I first started doing and every time I sit down to do one of these, that's the first thing pops in my head is that it's those two ladies. And the Betty White episode and the what's his name, the Baldwin guy.
You want to start talking about sweaty balls? Sit down to do one.
Oh, the muffin one. The muffin one with Betty
good.
White. That's the best. And that's all I've done all day. That's all that's on my browser right now is the YouTube stuff. I ran into this earlier, and I couldn't help but watch it about 5 times.
Curiosity, I guess. Heck, I'm curious like a cat. I have a couple of friends that call me Whiskers.
How good was SNL?
Well, I need to revisit that one because I haven't watched that in a long time. And I don't know if it was because just the age that I was when all that stuff came out. I mean, that was kind of in our high school years that it stuck. But I can remember going to school on Monday morning, and everybody had watched Saturday Night Live the night before, and I would be quoting, whether it was like the Spartan cheerleaders, or people like would remember the whole routine, or the Harry Carey bit, whatever. But it was huge, and I probably don't watch it as much as I did. I was pretty religious in those years. It was.
I don't really watch it at all, and I thought for a long time I just don't watch it because it's not as good. But like I've seen some stuff. Like after that, you had like what's the NSYNC guy? Done the movies, Daddy Britney Spears before she went crazy. Done the halftime
Timberlake.
That's probably the best host in the history of Saturday Night Live. Every time he's on, it's like, and that came kind of after that or towards the end of that, and like there's a lot of them on there right now. Like, they've had some female, like the McKenna lady, that are really funny. But I think the reason it doesn't get as much attention now, and the reason I don't, is like it can't live up to that because I was a big fan of the old, like Not Ready for Primetime Players, the old Eddie Murphy
Right.
days, and so I love that, and that was all really good. And then like I really liked the Phil Hartman and John Lovitz years, and then you got those Will Ferrell years, and I really liked them, and it was so good for so long. I just like they couldn't keep up, and I think that's the only reason I don't watch it now. But the old stuff, I'll go back nonstop and watch.
I still think it's really good now. I think the reason I don't like I'm not tuned in on Saturday night is accessibility. I know that I can hit the highlights on YouTube or whatever, so I'm not as tuned in on Saturday night, but I still think
It's
it's
good.
pretty quality.
It
Yeah.
is. I think people don't give it a chance because I'm that way with stuff. Nostalgia makes you that way with stuff. You're like, well, I want the
Yes.
same old thing I used to have, and you don't get it.
And I
I'm look.
feel like I'm always concerned about like what's going to happen when something happens to Lauren Michaels.
I
Like I'm just the older I get, the older he gets, and I'm like, what are we going to do when something happens to Lauren Michaels? Because I think that I don't know if they'll keep going.
a lot of people. There's been a there may have the one book may have released. There's a couple different people have been talking about books about Lauren Michaels. Apparently, like comedians hate him. He's the devil. But then the people that were really successful and come off there, like they may knock a little something here or there, but they everyone say the same thing. It's not possible without him. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's obviously really good at what he does. I
He
mean,
he left for a couple seasons, but I don't remember what seasons it was. But there were a couple seasons he wasn't on there, and I know those are supposed to be some of the worst
well,
seasons.
that's probably why I was gonna
Yeah,
say it's probably why you don't remember them
yeah.
because they were
I don't remember
probably
which ones they were
horrible.
supposed to be, but so you just went to Railbird Music Festival,
I did.
Woodstock '99 of Kentucky.
Woodstock '99, um, Lexington edition.
I think the opening ceremonies. I think I have some audio from the opening ceremonies of that.
You ready to get this motherfucker going?
Yeah, that's that. So Fred Durst opened it. Is that? Am I looking at that
Right?
video right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't
That-
know. I don't. I was in the water line. I have no idea. I don't. I have no idea who opened. I
so
was in line trying to survive.
was it just water shortage and overcrowding? What was?
I think it was overcrowding. I think that was the biggest issue, and because they were promoting having water stations, so you could bring your own container in, and they were really promoting the fact water was free. So because water was free, vendors really didn't have water. So then you're in a situation where I either wait in this line to get water. I mean, 'cause it's 100 degrees, literally 100 degrees, and I'm either waiting in this line to get water or I'm going to have to leave because if I don't, I'm going to pass out. Yeah, I mean, that's a real fear. People are dropping, so um, so the water line was like 45 minutes long because even the people who probably traditionally go to concerts and drink
It's
are
so
still
hot.
needing
Yeah,
water
they have no
because
choice.
it's so hot. And I usually have an advantage at concerts because I'm not there for the alcohol, so I'm not having to go to the bathroom as often, and my lines are short. But there was none of this. It was like survival of the fittest. I mean, there was no advantage.
What were they using to dispense the
But
free water?
so it was kind of like a portable tap. So it looked like you would pull it behind a car or whatever, and it was a tank that had 4 taps on it, just like a like a beer tap or whatever,
What is
except water.
Go
And
to Mud?
there was 4 on each side.
What is go to Mud Creek and grab Chris Lawson and like 6 other people with water hoses and just let
Right.
them fill up jugs? That seems like a lot more
Right.
practical.
Well,
It
that's
surprised
basically.
me that they do something like that with COVID. Like I'd have kind of been freaked out to be in the water line a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. COVID lives there. So the good part is there wasn't really a line for the bathroom because everybody was so dehydrated that nobody was going to the bathroom.
Holding their water. They
So
had to keep it. So
right,
I take it the
so
rumors
that was
that.
cool. I did
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I take it the rumors
I
that
did
nobody
manage to
was.
find.
We've got a lag, I think.
I found a vendor in the. I found a vendor in the back that had canned water, liquid death. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
No.
but it was warm. It was warm, so it didn't matter. But there was a vendor in the back that was selling mocktails. And so obviously his cart wasn't very popular because he's selling these non-alcoholic cocktails that nobody's interested in. But he did have canned water. And so that's where I ended up going. I bought like 4 cans of water to that way I could avoid. But I mean, it was warm. And at that point that's 2 lines that I stood in, So I mean, you're looking at a couple of hours. Out of the 4 bands that I went to see on Saturday, I saw one. Didn't even attempt to eat. Didn't even attempt to get food.
Who did you end up getting to see?
Leon Bridges was the
Okay.
one that I ended up seeing. And then my morning jacket was closing that night, and I didn't even stay because, at that point, I'm like 4 hours in, on the way to dehydration, hungry. So I was like, forget it. I'm leaving.
So the internet
I'm not
rumors
even
that nobody was going to show up due to the requirement of a COVID test is not true. Because that's what I kept hearing is this it'll be empty. Nobody will show up because you got to have show. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think like you can give me 5 shots to get in and see Jason Isbell. Like I'd take 5 shots to go in and see
Right.
Jason Isbell. I don't see that being an
Um,
issue. But like I do know people that wouldn't go because of that, and I thought that was and not like for political reasons. Like I think there's a couple people that really are legitimately just hypochondriac afraid of that stuff.
yeah.
Of anything. Flu
Yeah.
shot, tetanus shot. They're not afraid of what's in the shot. They're afraid of getting a shot. And one of these people's
Right.
like that, and they were like, I can't. I just can't bring myself to getting the shot. And he's like, it's not. I'm not afraid of the shot. I'm afraid of a shot. I don't like to get shots. I'm like, dude, you're almost 40. Come on. I
Yeah.
can't. I can't understand that. And plus, he's covered in tattoos, so that I
Right.
always think that's odd. And they always give me.
Makes
It's not the same
makes no
thing.
sense.
I just got a
Yeah.
tattoo, and it had been a while since I got one. And long as I'm out in this area on my arms and my back and stuff, no problem. The 2 I got on my chest, if you can withstand titty meat getting tattooed, you can withstand any shot anybody can
I'm
give.
not familiar. I'm not familiar with the titty meat tattoo, but I recently had the one on my back redone about a month ago, I guess, and I got it when I was 18, so it had been a long time since I did get one on my wrist for my 40th, but it was small and it wasn't compared to what I have on my back, so um, I was a little apprehensive about what that was going to be like. Um, but I mean, it was fine. I mean, it wasn't as like I think I remembered it being a lot worse than what it was.
I never had one that even made me flinch until the one with my book title and stuff that come down close to above my nipple. And I was like, geez, oh man, it's the state of Kentucky, and you get out to the end, and there's that little tip of Kentucky that doesn't touch any other state. It's just kind of surrounded by water.
Right.
And he's putting out, I'm like, come on, that's not even really Kentucky. Leave that off, because it was in the most sensitive part.
That's
And
not even
then,
necessary.
yeah, I switch over to the other side and end up getting that Deftones tattoo. And when the horse's tail comes down, I was like, oh man, I got to start placing these better. So I'm done there. I do want something up the middle, but I'll wait until I'm old and close to death, and that way the pain won't really bother me as bad.
I mean, I will say after because I went from 18 to 40 and didn't get one, and then I get the one on my wrist for my 40th birthday, and I kind of got the fever again. I was like, oh, I could probably just keep on going with this.
It's definitely an addiction for me as far as I think about it all the time. Like that's the one thing left that I'm constantly like, I've got an idea for this. But I will say, I got the 3 when I was 18 that I got. I was really young, got those, the two Chinese symbols and the dragon that I guess I've got fatter and it's stretched and things have happened and it's kind of like a Warshaw test back there. It's not really a dragon, but with the exception of those, like I've put a lot of thought into the rest of them. Like I've known when I got it, okay, this means something. It's got something. I
Yeah.
look at it, makes me smile. I'm happy about it, and I always said I'd never go below my elbow. Not that I think they look great below the elbow, but just as sad as it is, there's still a bias towards people like that to some degree. Especially, I will say there's people I work with that are my superiors that would feel differently about me because of those tattoos, and I shouldn't let that dictate that, but I did. And me and my stepsister got matching tattoos, and we both got a raven. My raven, she drew the raven and drew everything on the inside of it, and then she got half of a Poe quote, and I got half of a Poe quote. She's got the same raven, but the guy that did the tattoo, Raven, he actually changed the inside of hers, so the insides are custom, and then she's got half the quote, and I've got half the quote, and she put hers on her forearm. I put mine on my back shoulder. If I had it to do over again, I would have put that on my forearm, and I'd have been that much closer to just sleeving this side out and saying screw it,
Right.
because I see that in my near future. Uh, I keep moving down. I always said not past the elbow, and then I was like, man, a 3/4 sleeve for some reason looks really good to me. And now I'm like, if I'm going to go 3/4 of the way, that's going to look weird with that little gap. Maybe I should go on down to the wrist. But I'm not doing hand tattoos yet.
Right.
I'm still holding strong. I'm never going to do hand or neck tattoos.
Yeah. Let's stick with that.
I mean, it really doesn't appeal to me
Yeah.
at this point. And leg tattoos have never appealed to me. Not that I don't like them, but I got little bitty bird legs, and I never wear shorts anymore. Like I think I wore shorts last time summer of 2000. I very seldomly wear shorts anymore, and I was like, I'm going to cover all this up, and all the good spots are pretty well gone for bigger stuff. So I'm thinking Beetlejuice on my calf, and then that's gonna be my leg tattoo. And then, so when I get this filled up, I can start down.
Unless your rap career takes off, then
If
I
it,
feel like your face
yeah,
is fair game.
yeah,
So
I've had this plan forever, and it started out. I was gonna make up this fake rapper, and I was gonna do this whole YouTube channel, and it was gonna be nothing but this guy for because I'm got ADD and I'm bored and I have a lot of time on my hands and me and this guy I work with joke about it all the time. I'll be like, I see these guys on YouTube all the time. I just dress up like a rapper, do the fake tattoos on my face, and every time right before I rap, something will happen. And me and him was sitting there the other day, and he was like, you know, I think that idea would work because he's found all these guys. I mean, like they're not doing it as a joke or doing it on purpose, but that's basically what they're
right.
doing on YouTube. And I'm like, this could work. I was like, yeah, but I think I'm gonna go in as a folk singer. So I come up with this whole name and everything. So if I switch careers just midstream, and you see me on YouTube, that's what's happened. But that guy, I think he would have face tattoos too. So I think I'm safe. If I get a face tattoo, I got a backup plan for income that I think
All
will
right,
work.
good.
YouTube star.
Yeah, because I think that's a real narrow job market when you start
Well,
tattooing your face
I work
and
with
neck.
guys like that all the time. And actually, the funny thing is, I worked the current job I do. I worked for probably 8.5 years, and we got laid off a while, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's the first time I'd ever really been laid off, and I was off. That's when I tried to sell cars, and I was too honest to do that. That's probably the only thing. It's probably the only time ever a honeycut's been too honest to do anything. But I I come back to work, and we're out there on the job, and a guy that was kind of like the head boss. He doesn't work with us anymore, and he's a really good dude. I like him. He was always good to me. He comes out, and there's 5-man crew out there, and I'm kind of watching the environmental stuff and the safety. And he comes out and he says, "You look at that, 5 guys, 5 good workers." He said, and 4 of them just tattooed everywhere, all over their hands and necks and stuff. And he said, they could come out and be just like you and no tattoos and work just as hard. He said, they'd
Ah,
make it a lot further in life. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And at that time, the count was 11. I was like, you realize I got 11 tattoos, don't you? And he was like, oh, well, no, I don't mean I think any differently about them guys, but he does. And I mean, it's weird to sit and try to rationalize it or justify it. Like, knowing him as a person, I know he's not a bad person. Like, I've seen him do good things for some of those guys and try to help them out. But he really does feel that way. And it's just odd to me that he can't separate those two things. But it's definitely becoming more socially acceptable.
I think so. Yeah.
Your Fred Durst back piece will be completely
Right.
socially acceptable in the
Yeah.
next. That's the part you left
Right.
out when you were talking about redoing it. You were getting the L and the B down at the bottom brightened up a little bit. I remember that tattoo.
Right. With a
Yeah.
chainsaw.
So you watched the documentary
I did.
on Woodstock '99, and you listened to the podcast. What do you think? Like, how close was I, and how close were they?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think you were spot on. I don't know. I don't know about blaming musicians. I'm a little on the fence about that. And I mean, they made it seem as though Limp Bizkit, incited that right. I mean it. But I think there was a lot of bands we didn't even get to see. Like, they didn't even show their performance, so we
They
have
did.
no idea what part they may have played in it. It's like they almost wanted to pin that on them.
I think they
But
did. They didn't show Rage Against the Machine burning the flag. And what I'm curious about is it's been so many years, I can't remember the lineup. I can't
yeah,
remember
I have no
who
idea.
who come and where. I know that at the point everything was burning, Limp Bizkit was playing during that. But I'm like you. I mean, I honestly, you look at what Red Hot Chili Peppers done. Did they do that in defiance? Yes, they did that in defiance. But would they be the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or would they be a rock and roll band if they didn't do that in defiance? But they're not responsible for how people act.
No, and
Like,
that's the thing. And I think how much of that act have they done at their shows, 100 times before that, and nobody started burning everything down. I think there was a lot of factors. I think it was the perfect storm. And so and after Saturday, I could see how people would get angry enough to be like, we're just gonna burn this place down. I
I look at it, and to me, it looked like they had two direct targets: Limp Bizkit, and it wasn't good enough to say fans of Limp Bizkit. To me, it felt like they had to say angsty, young, like heavy metal fans. You remember? I mean, I was a very
yeah.
weird person. Sorry, I've got something in my throat. I was a very weird person. I looked the part of everything they wanted those kids in that crowd to look like, and then I look at that crowd and I don't see any of those kids. Seen very few of those kids. None. I wasn't there, and people that was into that type of music like I was at the time wasn't there, mainly because we couldn't afford it. But you had a upper middle class frat looking guy there, and like it it was an ocean of every single cliche 90s frat movie scene every time you looked out. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how these people make this and look at it and not see that.
Yeah.
And I don't, did Fred Durst and them help it and say, hey, we're going to calm it down, we're going to calm it down? No, they didn't. And it's not really their job. I remember we were at Ozfest, and the headline lineup for that night, it was Godsmack, then Pantera, and then Ozzy. And Godsmack was on stage, and they were throwing mud, and it rained just enough to get it a little muddy. And it was at River Bend, and it was under the amphitheater part. And and there was a big pit like right outside of that. We had snuck in, just went in. We had one ticket that had a pit, and they just go in, hand it over, and the other person walk. We had done that numerous times, but we left and come back towards probably the middle of Godsmack to catch Pantera. And Sully, the singer for Godsmack's on stage, and it's like in between it, and it could have been one time, but it felt like every song. This guy would walk up to the corner of the stage. Sully'd walk over to the corner of the stage. Sully'd walk back to the microphone and go, "If you guys don't quit throwing mud, we're gonna have to stop the show. They're gonna stop the show." They'd play another song, come back. If you guys don't chill out with the mud, we're gonna have to stop the show. And every time he'd do it, he'd say, "I have an announcement to make. If you guys don't stop throwing the mud," and nobody quit throwing mud. It was nonstop. The cops started kind of creeping in and getting closer, but there's so many people, like so few cops, like they don't insert
Yeah.
themselves right in, but they kind of look for the obvious offenders. And it's not like crazy or anything. It's not a big ruckus. It's just you've got a lot of teenage kids, and I'm not going to act like we didn't throw some mud. Somebody's saying, "No, don't do this," and you do it. And then Pantera comes out, and Phil Anselmo walks out and grabs the microphone. Somebody throws some mud, and this guy walks up to the corner of the stage, and Phil just looks at him and waves his hand off like that. And he said, "I got an announcement to make. There'll be no blanking announcements made during my blanking show. Stop throwing the mud. Look for the biggest guy around you. Take him to his knees in the pit," and then that's it. And music starts. There's no more mud thrown. There was no fights. There was like he diffused it without. If Limp Bizkit had come out and been like, "Hey, don't burn that stuff. Hey, don't do that," I don't think that's going to work. It's not going to
No, I
work.
don't.
Yeah, you're not going
No,
to get a positive reaction from that.
no, I don't think it would have stopped it at all.
I don't think there's anything they could have done to stop it. I think that mindset was pretty prevalent already. Like, I think based on the type of people that it would take to kind of do something like that, you kind of had to have that mindset somewhat coming in. And then it was a weird festival. You look at what they did it in, was it 96? When was the one before that?
90,
95?
94.
94? Like,
Yeah, 94.
I went back and watched videos from that. Completely different atmosphere, completely different type of bands. One thing I don't know that Limp Bizkit and even Korn and those, I don't think those bands were right for the type of atmosphere they wanted to have there. And I think just because it was the in thing to do, they brought them in. But I think these people had that mindset coming in, and I don't think you had people coming in. I've always knocked Limp Bizkit, and there's a guy that I've been talking to a lot here lately. It's really changed my mind. I went back and listened to some of their music. Like, I'm not a huge Fred Durst guy, but like I kind of see a little method to the madness, and a little, there's some strokes of genius there at times, and like
I mean, you have to consider where we were too for music at that time. It's hard to go back and listen to it and not be objective. I think I think for its time, they introduced a new style of music that a lot of people then followed. So I think
well, I think
you have to give them some credit for that.
they're a huge band. Like, I mean, they're a huge band, but I don't think any of those bands really belong there. I think,
It was a mixed batch.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
definitely had the
yeah,
ability. They were probably most of the draw there. Is those bands, the Corns, the Limp Bizkits, definitely Metallica. Those bands, but see, Metallica could have pulled it off. Metallica's they go pretty soft a lot of times in kind of their attitude, so they can pull that off. But I don't think you had a bunch of Corn fans, because I knew a whole lot of Corn fans. I knew the people that were into Corn way before me and got me into it. Never seen one with the old college style baseball cap and
Right.
the jorts and and the white t-shirt. I've never seen that. I've never seen
Yeah.
Corn fans in that, and never really seen Limp Bizkit fans in it. But I do think Limp Bizkit, because it was so big commercially, that these people probably were somewhat into that. But I think these people came in with a mentality that they were going to do some damage anyway, and they got caught up in the excitement and they done it. And I don't think it was Limp Bizkit's fault, and I don't think it was the fault of fans of that type of music. I think it was the fault of the
No.
people that were there, and I think that's the thing that really got me is they never. I hear people say all the time that they don't understand where anybody could ever in any part of history ever come up with the notion of white privilege. You take a bunch of upper class people, regardless of their color, and you put them in a situation like that, and they act the way they act, and the same thing happens to them that happened to those people. Nothing. I mean, there were rapes and everything. You
Oh yeah,
got away
we
with
won't
murder
even.
for 3 days.
Yeah, we won't even get into the treatment of women in that situation. That's another podcast. But
I mean,
I mean, and then the herd mentality that takes over in a situation like that for people of that age. I mean, it was a recipe for disaster.
it was sad. Like it was something because I really wanted to go. I remember it and remember really wanting to go, and I'm glad to a certain degree that I didn't get to go
Oh
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't have enjoyed that.
I mean, obviously, I wanted to go too. I don't know anybody that. I mean, I was 18, so I feel like anybody at that time that was happening. Yeah, but after watching that, it was a relief for me.
Outside of being a woman, and in my case, it may be equally as dangerous. You take a guy in a corn T-shirt and pretty goth looking clothes and put him with those guys, they're hitting me first more than likely before they start
Yeah,
burning stuff. So I don't think corn fans were real safe there. So I don't think I would have made it there. I don't. I'm soft.
yeah.
I'm not made to be tough. It doesn't work that way with me.
You were more of like a Woodstock original, like the Woodstock '69
I don't know. I've
in the
watched
pond, in,
maybe
bathing
like
in the ponds type
I'm
of
I'm
situation.
probably hacky sack 94 Woodstock.
Right.
I'm
Well,
probably
there
closer
you
to that. I may not dig the music, but that's probably I'm safer there.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the rail concert? Do you think that was just maybe they thought a bunch of people weren't going to show up and got overwhelmed, or because it wasn't a complete disaster? Like we've been joking, it was obviously had some
No.
really good performers and stuff, and
Oh
it's something they're
yeah.
going
I
to do
mean,
again. But
the music was not the issue. I mean, the lineup was solid on all three stages, and it was a lot of, you know, the, I mean, there were times where you felt like you had to run from stage to stage because all the lineups on all three stages were just fabulous. But I had heard rumor that anybody who had a ticket from 2020, because obviously it was postponed, those tickets were honored for this year, and then they sold tickets on top of that. I don't know if there's any truth to that. That's one of the things I had heard because everybody I know that went in 2019 just talked about how great it was. Best festival they'd ever been to. It was the music was good. There were no lines. And then for it to take such a drastic turn, you can't help but think. I'm sure greed played a factor when it went so well that first year. I'm sure in their mind they thought, well, let's sell 10,000 more tickets, and that'll be that much more money or whatever the case may be. So I'm not sure what happened,
well,
and
hopefully,
I haven't seen any numbers. Like I don't know how many people were there.
hopefully, it's something they look at and it's an easy fix, and because it's really like there's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. There's like a ton of bands that I don't know anything about. And that's why I didn't really make an attempt at it. I would have been buying a ticket just to go see Jason Isbell because I don't
Yeah.
really know. And then I was afraid it being hot and the possibility of water shortage, Dave Matthews Band would start a riot and they'd burn the place
Oh
down.
please.
That popped
Oh
up in my
please.
mind. Soon as
Let-
What Would You Say come on, I just
right.
seen
Yeah.
them
Don't
burning
drink the
everything to the
water.
ground. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Don't drink the water.
I,
Um,
I seen it getting bad.
right. Well, there are better venues to see Jason Isbell in. I will say that he put on a really good show. He did a Stones cover in tribute of Charlie Watts, which was really cool. But there are better venues to see Jason Isbell.
Like Charlie Watts, that happened just to me. Like I didn't know he was sick, and I just get up and open up, social media, and like that one, like I don't know as much about him. Like obviously everybody knows about, you know, Keith and Mick. Like that's, and then what's the Wood guy? He played with Rod Stewart. I remember that.
Ronnie
So,
Wood.
so
Ronnie Wood.
yeah, so I remember that.
Yeah.
But like I always liked the Stones more just from being around you guys because you liked them so much, and your dad liked them so much, and Eric liked them so much. Like I got into it more from that. Like I never was a heavy fan, but like that was one of them ones because he just seemed like such a nice guy, and I've seen so many interviews and documentaries. He's always been this straight laced, normal, nice guy. Like that really bothered me. I mean, it bothers me when anybody
Yeah.
dies, but when it's somebody you don't know, like you're like, oh man, that sucks. But that one, I was like, man, that really sucks. I mean, there's that little bit of comfort that those guys aren't like immortal or haven't sold their soul, and they actually will go at some point. Like
They're
that, that's
actually
real.
gonna die.
I
Yeah.
mean but like it bothered me, and I don't know. I didn't see that one coming. Like Joey Jordison, a guy that I listened to twice more of his music, and always really been into the bands he's in, and was really into Slipknot when it first came out. It bothered me when I heard that he passed away, but for some reason, like Charlie hit me harder, and I don't know why. It was just one
I
that
agree.
might have been
Yeah.
having one of them days.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of history, like you said, with that band and our past. I think they're just kind of intertwined. So, um, and I don't know. Typically, when a drummer goes, that's kind of the anchor.
Yeah.
And I think he was. He seemed like he held things together. There was a calmness about he wasn't as flamboyant as Mick, or I mean, so
He definitely kept them grounded because he was not in the Waiting with a Friend video.
but that's also a machine. I mean, the Rolling Stones is way beyond a band at this point. I mean, it's a brand, it's a business, and it's a machine, and they may very well go on. But I just sometimes when a drummer goes, that's kind of
do you,
that's
as
kind of
being a fan, do you have an issue with them going on? Like, do you think that's wrong?
I don't.
I don't either. To me,
Not at this point.
no. And it's not that I think any position is more important. I just think the only time it gets really hard is the singer. And it's just because that is, even though it's, if you got a four-piece band, that's only one fourth of the sound, but really in kind of what you take in and absorb and what you identify that band with, that voice can be
Right.
90% of the sound. And you've got bands like ACDC. I don't know how that worked. I don't know how you go from
Yeah,
Bon
that's
Scott and find a Brian Johnson. Like that doesn't happen that often. But if any member of Deftones passed away, and it was like we're gonna, because they did. Well, Chi passed away, the bass player. So now they've got Sergio playing bass. Like it it doesn't affect it to me. Like it's different music. He writes and plays in a different style, and maybe just because I play bass some that I recognize that or like focus on that. But I like the way he does it. You know, I'll always prefer Chi to a little bit, but I was really accepting of that, the fact that they brought somebody different in. But if Chino, if something happened to Chino, that's to me a real. He doesn't have an excellent voice. He has a really unique voice and a really unique
right.
style where he sings, where he puts words in parts of songs. You don't like you'll hear that style from Depeche Mode and you'll hear that style from The Cure, but you won't hear that style from heavier bands. And he kind of flows in and out singing that way with heavier music. And if you could match the voice, I don't know if you could match that style. And it's not that he's more important. It kind of kills the sound of the band. But
I agree.
I think it's a good thing for fans if they do, especially they've made it this long.
Yeah,
I don't know if Keith Richards can die.
they
He, you
might well
know,
just ride it on out.
I think they should. This has
Well, I
turned
mean,
in.
you look at situations like Led Zeppelin. So when John Bonham dies, I mean, they're done. They stop in their prime. And, that's a situation where I feel like surely there could have been somebody and they could have kept that going and lasted for years. But I mean, that's an example where, it ended. But also, like, I'm going to see Dead and Company in a couple of weeks. And so you think about the Grateful Dead, if people know nothing else, they know about Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
And he's been gone for years, and they have had lots of different variations where they have toured with different band members. But then they put John Mayer, of all people, in Jerry's spot, and it works, and it works well. And as a longtime Grateful Dead fan, there are some fans who had issue with it, but I think he's very respectful. I think it works, and it's the only variation of the Grateful Dead other than the original lineup that I have ever even considered listening to.
Well, I think his name helps that to a certain. Like it hurts him; it's a hindrance, but it will help them kind of bring in new fans and with
And he's a
recognition.
good guitar player. I mean, you can't discount that. So
I never understood the whole John Mayer thing at first. I was like, okay, I understand he's a pop star. Like, I understood that, but legitimate guitar players talking about John Mayer this, and like, I knew a dude that was a killer guitar player, and his dream guitar is this John Mayer Signatures series because of certain options and stuff it's got. And like, I finally got to the point, because there's a guy really, I respect his opinion a lot. I respect your opinion a lot on music. He's one of them guys I can sit down and talk to a lot about music. I'm like, explain to me this deal with John Mayer, and he was like, you just got to watch him play. Don't
yeah,
watch
he's
him
good.
play My Body's a Wonderland or whatever.
No,
Watch him
no.
play, and
Go.
not that that's a horrible song. It's just not my style. But
It
when
kind of
I
is.
really when I really deep dived into his stuff, he's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
if
ridiculous.
if you go listen to the Trio album where he is with I can't remember the guy's name. His last name is Jordan. That plays drums, but it's amazing.
Montel?
No, I mean that's close. I mean,
That may be. I don't remember. I was highly impressed.
Steve Jordan, not Return of the Mac. No.
I was highly impressed when I heard his stuff. But now, like in regards to what happened to Led Zeppelin, I I think there were definitely John Bonham was an amazing drummer. There's no doubt, and I think there were people around that could take his place. And this is where I often lose friends and listeners for stuff like this. Um, really, I think they run out of places to steal songs.
No, come
And
on.
they stole almost everything. Well, they didn't steal everything. They
You think
stole.
they stole Black Sabbath's music? That's
Well,
what you
they
think.
stole. Well, no, they. I mean, they've lost in court numerous times. But
Yeah.
the band that wrote Stairway to Heaven, I think they ended up beating that band the second time in court. They were bad to steal songs. And then when they weren't stealing songs, a lot of times, and this is not a knock necessarily, a lot of if I sit down and say name me Eric Clapton's your five favorite Eric Clapton songs, it's a good chance four of them's going to be covers. I mean that he does them and he
It's
does them well, and I'm a huge
yeah.
Clapton fan. But
It's a
they
good
didn't.
chance that J.J. Cale wrote the
Yeah.
song. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah.
But Led Zeppelin didn't have really a lot of creative. I mean, I say that and it sounds like they had a lot of good music and they done a lot of good music. And I'm not saying I know exactly what happened. Just if you read interviews and stuff and they talk about we lost interest and we had writer's block and stuff like that, I think that Bonham was probably a bigger part of that original music writing portion of it than people may have known. And when you take out the guy that's doing the original stuff or having most of the original ideas, then you're left with what can Jimmy Page steal and what can Robert Plant cover. and you don't get as much. And I think a good drummer coming in, if they would have let new blood in, like you take Metallica, they bring in new guys all the time and they treat them like crap and recycle them and go back. It's two guys in that band, and that's a band I love their music. They have very little respect for the two main guys just because of the way they've treated people in the past. But
Right.
with Led Zeppelin, I don't think they had any desire to really go on, and try to to move into. It's easier for them just to find somebody to come out and go on tour with than bring somebody into the band to help write. And I think that was probably a lot of the issue. This has turned into the music show.
I knew it would. I knew it would.
We didn't. Do you want to talk a little bit
When
about
you-
something else? I don't know how
when
much
you
time you've
started-
got.
When you started with sweaty balls, we knew where it was going.
I heard that today, and I couldn't
Yeah.
help it. um, that just
I
means
don't
we
know.
have to do multiple episodes.
Yeah, this is going to be a series
But
of episodes.
would you like to talk about, or are you in the mood to talk about coincidence versus synchronicity?
I mean, that's a hard transition you just did there.
It is. It is. Let's do an hour and 15 on this, and then next week let's do that.
Alright.
And then I promise next week, no SNL clips, no Fred Durst clips.
I mean,
we
I
do it.
don't know. I don't know where we're at on time. I don't know what we're looking at.
I have plenty of time, but you actually have a life. I'm
I mean,
by
I'm
myself in West Virginia.
good. I'm in the woods. No, I mean we can roll with it.
Well, if you want to, that's fine with me, because it's something that since we've been talking about it, I've been looking at and kind of trying to read up on and stuff, and I'm kind of split on how I feel about it. I guess easiest way so everybody else knows we're off of dead rock musicians and all
Right.
that good stuff. What we've been talking about personally, and what we thought would make a good topic for the show, is the difference, or maybe the connection with how you feel about coincidence versus synchronicity, or maybe how you feel the difference you feel between just happenstance and fate, something of that nature. What, because something has to trigger that interest, and what really triggered your interest in that, and like what level of impact did those things have?
Well, it must be old age. No, no. I think the first time I kind of stopped and took a look at things that I couldn't explain, because I've never, I didn't really grow up with a whole lot of faith in my household, no kind of organized religion, and I'm still not. I mean, I have some viewpoints, but I'm still not involved in any organized religion. So when I looked back, probably when I got clean, I think is when I first, because, well, obviously prior to that, I was probably in no mental state to even be aware of what was happening around me. And I think to even give this any kind of thought or recognition, I think you have to be aware enough of your surroundings to take notice when something is like, oh, that's odd, But so when I got clean, there were just a lot of different things. Had one thing been different, I may not be sitting here right now, and there were just lots of things that lined up exactly right for me. And after I got removed a few years and had been clean a while and would tell people about my journey, then I had to take a hard look at that and be like, that's really, it's amazing that things just kind of lined up the way they did. And then, I can remember, and this is where you get into the gray area of, is this a coincidence? But I can remember being a kid and riding in the car and like thinking about a song, wishing a song would come on the radio, and then it would come on the radio. And then as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, I've got some kind of power, like but if you think about stuff like that happens all the time. I mean, there are people that I will, like here at the bookstore, I will think about a customer that's maybe not been in a while, and then they'll either show up that day or the next day, or think about somebody and then they text you. I mean, just stuff like that that I think you either just don't pay attention to or don't, attach any meaning to. And I'm not saying I attach any meaning to it, but it's enough of a coincidence, if you want to use the word, that it makes me pause and think, that's strange. That why did that happen? So I think when I got clean, for the short answer, which wasn't short, but when I got clean is when I started noticing. And then it's come back again with everything that's happening here now with this bookstore, with writing. Um,
I've always said I don't believe in luck, but
oh, I don't believe in luck.
I also don't believe that life is predetermined. That
Mm,
this is the way it's going to go, no matter what you do. I don't believe
I
that.
don't believe that either.
So if neither one of those are true, then I guess I have to find a spot. And as the eternal skeptic, when we first started talking about this, my first thing was, well, it just is what it is. What happens happens, and you can have influence on it, but you can't will something to be done, and then you know. But then I look back, like if you asked Rachel, like if I was hooked on drugs when we first got together, she would say yeah. From real struggle and real experience, I wasn't. Like
I would
I
I would probably say no.
I was able to, for whatever reason, I always say I hit the lottery there because all the opportunity was there, and I took advantage of that opportunity quite a bit, probably a lot more so right around 20 when we got married. But like I took advantage of those situations and got in some bad situations, but it seemed like every time, like we got married, and I left her because of that, because I was doing that and she was kind of not letting it be fun, and I just wanted to be a kid and do what I want to do because we
Yeah,
got married really young, and she had to be
right,
responsible because she had Katie before we got together, and I was new to the trying to be a dad, trying to be a husband deal, and so I just left. And then there was one point there where I stayed high for like 3 days, and I woke up at my mom's house on a Wednesday, and I had was more than 3 days because I had left work on Friday night, and I don't really remember anything after Friday night. And get up Wednesday, you know, actually remember Broody. Broody was working with me. We were working at Faulkner's, and I was the boss. And Broody's like, "Hey, you where you at?" He's like, "I've called everywhere." He was like, couldn't get a hold of him. He got me at my mom's house. Mom's bed was made and she was going to work, so I don't even know at what point I got down there. But this is like 3 o'clock in the evening. He finally gets a hold of me. He's like, "Where you been?" I was like, I don't know." I go to work that next day, and it's like it works out perfectly to where I have to be around my dad for like the next 2 days. So I know I'm not going to do anything at that point because I've never smoked in front of him, never drank in front of him, never cussed in front of him. Like I'm not going to do anything to be around my dad. And at the end of that 2 days, I was like, "Man, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do." And I always say, well, I got lucky, and I just it could have happened to me. I don't believe in luck, but I got lucky. Whatever it was, that was what I needed at that time.
right,
For some reason, it happened. Now, maybe what I needed at that time could have been to get hooked and spend 5 years hooked, and maybe I'd have got more value out of life being hooked 5 years if that's what I needed. But for whatever reason,
right,
that wasn't what I needed. And so it was serendipitous, at least, that, things fell in place the way they fell in place. And I always look back and like I'm grateful about that. And I think that makes me put a little more credence into this, into there being something to that, because it's easy when everything's going good for me to look and go, man, I'm lucky. But, you know, I got laid off work, and we were just in great shape. We didn't have house payment anymore. We were in a really good spot, And Rachel was all bummed out, and I was like, man, I mean, I get to be home with you guys every day. We're not really hurting for money. Like, we're not going to be living like we did, but we're not starving. Like, it could be
Yeah.
so much worse. And I think of all these little things it took to get me to that point to where I was there that day with that company, and I got rid of that house payment and this. It like, I don't know. It seems like there were a lot of unconscious decisions that I had to make to get to that point, but it also seems like there was a lot of things I had to really want really bad, and it was things that I couldn't necessarily materialize and do just through work and effort. It kind of just had to happen.
Yeah.
And I think about that, and it makes me think about what I actually do believe.
And I don't. I think so. I read an article in the Atlantic about this particular subject, written by Julie Beck, and there's kind of like a spectrum of either you just don't believe this at all, like you're not even aware if something happens, you don't see coincidence, you don't see, like, you don't even see signs if they're there. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where you have people who are very faith driven, um, who attribute this to something greater than themselves, whether it be God or whatever, and they're asking for things. And those are the two total ends. And then there's somewhere in the middle that's kind of just like conscientious of things that are happening. I think I probably fall somewhere in the middle where it's, I'm not, I don't think it's like some kind of guiding force, but I also think there have been things where I don't have answers for. And I think that's the whole thing with this, is that and I'm real, like, science driven. I wanted to find, is there any kind of research or data that's been collected for this? And you just can't. I mean, there is none. Like, you can't. um but I just feel like when you have a situation like that where there are just some things that, whether it be people that came into your life, or um, just right place, right time, just feeling like this, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And I've had places in my life, like, everything feels like right now feels real easy. Like, I mean, it's just, I'm moving with ease through decisions. But there have been times in my life where it wasn't. And I think anytime there's that kind of resistance where maybe things, I mean, I grew a lot during those times, but it's obvious I wasn't. And I go at everything full force. I mean, I'm like, 100% with everything I do. So I was 100% bought in when I worked at Walmart. It was the first job I had when I got clean. Well, I was going to be a store manager, and I was full on, like, that was the path. And I just kept running into walls. So obviously that's not where I needed to be. So I had to shift and do something else, and then shift and do something else. And this right now in this moment feels very true to who I am.
I,
And and
I
I don't
think
know. I don't know. I mean, there's some of that I just can't take credit for.
well, I see that. Like, I think the problem I've had, really looking at it from that point of view for a long time was, I think about the things I've really worked for, and that I feel really good when it's going in that direction, and then it doesn't happen. But I thought about that a lot today. I read a couple things online. I was thinking, how much, how many times has maybe the right decision been presented to me, and those right circumstances been there for me, but I am one of those people that I'm an opportunity killer a lot. I'm one of them people that, and I know I am, I'm one of them people that really likes to put things in my own way. And because
Right.
sometimes I like a struggle. Sometimes I like, okay, this
Yeah.
job's way too easy. Let me make this harder. Let me
Yeah.
sleep 3 hours a night and try to do two other things on top of working. Like,
Sure.
and so it may be more apparent in my life than I've noticed that it is, but I'm one of them roadblock guys. Like, I've never felt like, well, I have, like, there's been a couple times that it's been really bad, but I'm not generally one of those people that feel like I just can't catch a break because
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm not college educated. I'm not overly intelligent. Uh, I'm not extremely fun to be around. I can't think of any reason why people keep me in the positions they keep me in. But like, I have a
Right.
really good job, and it for the last year, and that's something that my family's talked about a lot. Well, you need to find something else to do, and why would you even go back to these guys, and why are you hanging on waiting for them? I don't look at this last year. I look at the other 9 years, and for those other 9 years, I made double what I could have made at the highest paying job in Knott County, by far. And like we we've had really, really good, and maybe that's what makes it hard for me because a lot of times I just look at it and go, you know what? I've tried to be a good person. I'm not a great person, but I've tried to be a decent person. And like I've tried to do that and I've tried to do things right and I've always tried to be fair. And so I do feel like that has to reciprocate at some time. And
I
and
agree.
I I may not feel like karma's real all the time, but I do feel like that. And when it gets really bad, I am. When I lost my job and we filed bankruptcy, and I mean we lost everything, vehicles, home, everything. Like my wife was just, where'd you go? My wife was just was just heartbroken, and I felt really
Right.
bad for her, and I felt like a failure on that part. But as for me at that moment in time, I was like, oh, man, I just dodged a bullet. We had a vacation rental home in Tennessee, and we had this house up here, and we had three new vehicles, and work was slow, and I was stressed to the max, and everything's gone now, and I can start over, and I can be happy, and I cannot ever
Yeah.
get to that point again. Like, I look at these things, like, maybe that's why some people don't see it the way like you see it is that wasn't necessarily a bad thing to me. I thought it
Right.
was a good thing. It keeps saying internet connection unstable. So if I lose you, well, keep that in mind. But it's still going as of right now.
Okay. But at one of the, which this is not really even what we're talking about, but one of the stories that she told was that she went to this theme park. This was from the article that I read in the Atlantic. That she had went to this theme park and had was in line for a ride and had found some money. Her and her friends found some money, and that was like $134 or something. And then she named the ride. It was at Cedar Point, I think, was the theme park. And so then she is at some kind of conference or an event like a year later, and she overhears this guy talking about when he was in, no, this was years later, I guess. Anyway, but I mean, the point was, is the guy was at the conference and she overhears him talking about this money he lost at this theme park when he was, whenever. And she goes up to him and was like, was it this day in May? Was it at Cedar Point? He told her the exact dollar amount, and they just happened to be at this conference together. And so that was one of the examples that she used of, like, what are the chances? And I think that's kind of the phrase that we use when something like that we can't explain happens. We're kind of like, well, what are the odds that's going to happen? And so then everything kind of gets lumped into coincidence. But the point that she made was that the coincidence is there. It's just a matter of, if she hadn't overheard him, she would have never known. So how many things like that go on where we're in a situation where we're not even aware, we're not paying attention, that the coincidence is still there. But really the amazing part and what makes it synchronicity or whatever is the fact that we notice it.
That you see, I never thought about it like that, but that is like, how many things could you link back in a day, to,
Oh
and
yeah.
I, I had a guy wrote in, I had an email the other night. I done an episode on simulation theory. And I don't really believe in simulation theory, but I think it's one of the funnest of all the conspiracy theories to sit down and talk about. And it's fun because Elon Musk has told the world it's definitely true. And like, I like Elon, but I disagree with him on that one. But everybody listens to everything Elon says, so everybody's like, "Well,
Right.
it's obviously we're in a simulation." But that was always coincidence, deja vu, and luck were always the three things that I said. If you ever want proof you may be in a simulation, that's those three things. And like I said, I don't believe
Especially
that.
deja vu.
Yeah. But I look at it now and, you know, it's hard to explain because we talked about this privately. Like, it's hard for me. I'm not a super religious person. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not an atheist. I'm just not a super religious person. I think there's a lot in the belief structure that I'm just lost on. I've had a lot of people try to force the Earth 6,000 years old down my throat, and that irks me. Because it's like I'm starting out believing a lie when I'm supposed to.
Right.
It's not the tenets of the faith or what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do or supposed to believe that I have an issue with. It's maybe how literal things are taken. But
Right. Well, it's the organized religion part.
yeah, but I look at it and I'm like, it feels to me like this shouldn't happen. Like, if we don't really have any frame of reference because we've lived through. I'm a lot younger than you, but I've only been alive through. Really, I mean, a time period that's been advance, 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 advance. Everything's advancing and growing. Like,
Yeah.
the 80s seem, there was no Netflix and no Wi-Fi and this and that, but it still doesn't seem as dated as even the 50s, but let alone the late 1800s. It's like I've never known a time that wasn't really modern. So when you really sit down and think about it, it's like, I mean, look at what we came from and really how short of a time we got there. And mentally, how can our brains work to a point that we get to this, to where we're
Yeah.
2.5 hours away talking face to face, and you're blending them at the background, and I'm in this little circle, and I'm the host. This is my setup, but
I mean, I feel like I look good by this
like
fire.
it looks like
I
you're
do
really there. Every once in a while, it's like you put your hand in the fire, and I'm like, oh no,
Right.
but
Don't burn yourself.
oh no, but it's like there has to be, to me, something to the spiritual side of life. There has to be something to that magical side of life. And I feel like sometimes I get so tied to this skeptic identity that
Yeah.
I can't believe in anything. I can't believe in that, because I look at, say, what a psychic does. And, to me, I understand the questions you're supposed, like, it's a con. And a lot of really intelligent people have proven it a con. A lot of really good con men have proven it a con to me. And so I look at it and I see it that way. And so I let that taint everything. Maybe there
You're
is that
breaking my
person.
heart right now.
Maybe
because,
there
I
is
mean,
that, but
I had my cards read in New Orleans, and I feel like it was really good. And
but like, bring me a stranger and I'll read their cards and I'll get as close as that lady got.
I
It's
know,
a technique, but
sure,
when you bring up something like this and I look at it, I go,
this is not a technique. This is something
Yeah.
when you ride down the road and you're like, this is lining up. Very, very strange that this stuff is happening. There's nobody influencing that. Like, this is just me.
that's the
And
thing that's the
I
thing
had
that
somebody
intrigues
tell
me.
yeah, I had somebody tell me, they were like, well, you need to write these down. Like, when this stuff happens, and I got one friend that I text with pretty much every day, and there have been a couple of times, and she lives away from here. There have been a couple of times where I've texted her something, and something has been like, she's been doing something that pertains to whatever I've texted, and she'd be like, oh my God, stop being weird. I mean, because it'll line up, and I don't know. And I don't know. I think some of it you might can discount with, like, you are with like-minded people, so the chances are that you'll be doing things that are similar, maybe. Kind of like the phenomenon, if you go out and buy a Jeep, then you notice all the Jeeps on the road.
Yeah.
That kind of situation. And I think some of it can be that, but I do believe that I don't know. And I went down this whole rabbit hole of like vibration, like that our body, that we put off, that we all have this vibration that we put off, and that based on anxiety or depression or mood, that vibration can be altered. So the things that it attracts are different. I think.
That's
You
how
can go.
that's how Rachel
can,
got stuck with me. Her
you can
vibration
go
was
way.
off.
Yeah, her vibration was off.
Way off.
So, you can go down a rabbit hole with this stuff. But right now in this moment, it just kind of fascinates me because I just feel there are just so many things that are, just feel like it's right.
Well, if
for me
99
personally.
if 99% of it is explainable, and I'm not saying it's that much, but say it is 99%, it's like anything else you try to study or learn. What about that other 1%?
Right.
Like that actually makes that other 1% that much more special because there's so little of it. But who knows? Maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 40%. But it's like it. I looked at it. As I was reading it, the thing that popped into my mind was intuition. Like, what is intuition? Like, it's not just it don't feel the same as decision making, and it don't feel the same as problem solving. It don't feel the same as weighing your options when it's instant and it's in the moment and this is what I should
and
do.
It's your gut. It's
Yeah.
your gut. And I think, your gut, and mine has, and it will, when something's off. Or, I feel like I do. And then what you figure out is that maybe not everybody has that intuition either. But, when, and I'm here in this store by myself quite a bit. And, I think that I've had people come in here where my gut felt like it was off. And for that one person, there may have been 50 before them that I never even gave it a second thought. Everything was fine. But then that one person comes in and you're like, this is uncomfortable. So what is that? What about that? If there's nothing in appearance, or just what about that person all of a sudden triggers that gut intuition? Or, if you're somewhere you don't think, maybe I shouldn't be here. I feel like I'm in a place I shouldn't be in, or, whatever the case may be.
If you look at a situation to where something happens and it's something that you have some frame of reference for and you know how to react, like, okay, I can understand that. But it's when you get that intuition in a situation like that where there's no frame of reference. What made you come up with this? What made this kick in? Like that really interests me. And then I wonder if maybe I don't see it more as some people and see it more than other people, is my level of maybe being present. Like right now with the podcast I done last night and in work and being away from home and trying to talk to them and FaceTime and see Ryder as much as I can, and Katie's in Texas, like I am on my phone like 10 times more than I have been in the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm not as present. So how much of those opportunities do I miss in a day for that intuition to kick in, or to see that synchronicity, to see something that could be lining up ahead of me? And you always seem to be a pretty present person, and that may be why, like, you're catching that more than me and seeing that more than me.
And I really make an attempt to, because somebody that suffers from anxiety and depression both, I'm always living somewhere else, and if I have to be real conscious to be like, you need to not live for what's going to happen. I'm like event to event. When's my next road trip? When's my next concert? And I'm just riding out the days until I can do something else, and I just feel like that there's a whole lot that you miss out on waiting for the next big thing to happen. So I really make an effort to be present and slow down. And I think I've been an observer my whole life anyway. Very much a wallflower, very much just an observer of people and people's reactions and emotions. Because people are so transparent and they don't even realize it. I mean, I just feel like it. A lots of everything is written on somebody's face or in their actions, and they don't even. They're just so many people just walk around so unaware of themselves, if nothing else. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, I really make an effort to just be now and for my mental health, if nothing else. And then I think it makes you aware of things like this that happen.
Well, that may
Where you're
be
like,
another thing that
and I don't stop myself from, and this is another thing, I don't hinder myself from, maybe looking foolish or sounding crazy or any, I try to just be like, and that's taken me a long time to get there, because I have times where, I will have this thought or want to send this song to somebody, and I'll have it on my text message, and I'll be like, nah, I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to bother them. But then I also think, if I had this spur of the moment thought to send this to this person, or, then I should do it, because I don't know why. I don't know what's going on their end that's made me have this thought that I should send this or tell this person this thing. So I need to just do it, and not for fear of I'm going to annoy them, or they don't have time for me, or all that baggage, that you bring.
well, that may be another reason why you seem to be more in tune with it. Like, I don't read people good, and like I I get disappointed a lot. I'll meet a new person at work or run and be like, "That's an awesome dude. Yeah, he went to jail last night for beating his wife and stabbing his
Oh,
granny." I'm like,
he
okay,
stole my wallet.
yeah, like I don't. I'm a sucker for that sometimes, but I also can be a little too judgy sometimes, and some apparent like I I could sit and act like it wasn't true and be dishonest. Right? I see you see people that look a certain way that didn't interact well with you when you were younger, and you really preppy people
You bring that
like,
with you.
yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I see a dude and it's really like I will they'll have to work a little harder, dude with a mullet and Confederate flag in each hand, with a Skinner shirt on, is going to have to work a little harder.
Yeah,
Like,
I get
and
that.
that's not fair, and I don't feel that I'm right for it, but I do judge, and maybe I'm so blissfully ignorant to certain things and so judgy over other things that, again, I miss those. But I wonder, if it is more of like a link that people have, because animals have links similar to that. Our communication level verbally and what we're able to express verbally and the way we're able to communicate is so far above what they can do, but they seem to be so more in tune to their surroundings and to each other that it doesn't require as much
Yeah,
communication. And maybe this is a remnants of something like that we used to have, and some people are
exactly.
maybe
Exactly.
it's something that ayahuasca or DMT would bring back.
There we go.
I mean, in all honesty, like you say things like
Yeah.
that, and I heard a story, and I started looking for case. It's so hard to find case studies because you can on the DMT, but the ayahuasca is mostly secondhand. But the thing about this story is I've heard it a lot, which I've heard the Loch Ness monster story a lot too. Doesn't mean I think it's true, but
Right.
is people. Well, first of all, there is some clinical proof that, or clinical data that'll say a lot of the people have very similar experiences, and they can tie that experience together, like what the what the area looks like, what the beans look like, what all the things, what the feeling is like that's very similar. It's hard without an audio and visual input to have something project that same experience. It's one thing if there's an audio visual element to it that everybody's seeing the same thing, so therefore they can interpret it the same way. But when these people are so removed from each other, across years and miles and distance, the only thing they have in common is they've both seen these similar things. And ayahuasca really intrigues me. Like, not the idea of getting high and doing a drug, it's the idea of what is this that
Expansion.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so hard to explain what it is and where it comes from, and maybe you know maybe it is a gateway back to that connection that you know we lost at one point.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do ayahuasca, and you come and make sure I don't go insane. And,
All
like,
right.
does that not scare you? Does the thought of like that
I mean,
that
it
petrifies me?
it sounds like 1996 all over again. I don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't. I mean, I would be all about um, another plane, and um, hearing people's experience on ayahuasca, but it terrifies me personally. Like I just, um, my mental health is sketchy anyway, so I just feel like it. But I'll watch you do it, and then we can
that,
do a pod. Well, then we can do a podcast, and you can just. I'll live vicariously through your experience.
I say we let Chris do it. I would feel more comfortable with that, and I think it would be a better if it could
Um,
work. I don't know if it could work on him. I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I'm gonna say
He
no.
can't reach that level of consciousness.
So, do you think that because I mean I don't I can already say I don't agree with this because I didn't come into it with this predisposition. Do you think that you feel like it's really valid that these things are happening to you, or do you feel like it's maybe you're looking for something because I've always been told my lack of religion is going to cause me to look for something, and it could be the wrong thing, could be the devil, you know,
It could,
could be the
could be.
devil.
It could listen. It could be the devil, but um, I feel like if there is a hell, I've probably already been there. So
Well,
I mean, I think I've already experienced that to some degree. Yeah, it may be, and that's why I said jokingly in the beginning that it's probably like old age that I'm. But this is not new for me. It's just that I haven't ever talked about it. That's the thing, I mean, it's not new. It's just when you get, I'm just more comfortable with who I am at this point to be able to say, these strange things happen, and I don't know why.
yeah.
And I mean, they're not like. I mean, I'm not like they're not like mind blowing or anything, but it's just things that make you stop and wonder, there's something else maybe.
I
And I think people who have religion in their life will call it God, that God worked in their life and did this, or they prayed for something and got this. um and then you can get into a whole different thing of like law of attraction, which again
well,
is another.
I see what you're saying. Like, and I think that is probably where it it comes from. Like, it's what is it that your personal belief system allows you to credit it to, and obviously,
That's and that's
if
the thing. I think if it was other people, I think this kind of thing leads them to some sort of religion.
could it be Satan?
it,
They should have never
it
never gave
could.
me Zoom. There's too
It
many
could.
features here.
It could. Wow.
Yeah, if for people that are listening to, because I forget that I'm doing. That's why I love having a co-host. That's why when you got free time, you need to come say, "Hey,
Now
I'm bored.
my
I'm gonna do a
mute is all messed
podcast."
up.
I messed you up because like I
Satan done messed
forget we're
up my.
the devil did it.
Now
I
I'm like
forget we're
reversed.
doing it, and you were mirrored a minute ago because you tried to put your hands in the fire and you went to this side instead of this side. So,
Yeah. Interesting.
but I guess to me, like I would have never said, okay, this is my religious beliefs that make me believe this. I would automatically say this is my skepticism that makes me not believe
Yes.
it. And
Yeah.
that can
Traditionally,
be
that. Yeah.
it can be a crutch to make you believe it too much. I do believe that. Like I think it can be a crutch to make you see too many things or maybe put emphasis on things that aren't really there. But I think on the other hand, I'm going to automatically have that inclination to disregard things but there's just some that's the thing when you mention the topic and I really read it and sit down and looked and got to thinking about it is it's one of those things that of like I cannot say I've ever had a religious experience. I can't.
Nah, me either.
I've never felt anything in that manner. I
Now,
can't
are you
say
thinking like, oh God, she's about to start a commune. She wants me to come live on a commune. Was that where you were?
no,
Is that what you were thinking?
no. But like, even though I can say that, when you brought this up, I could not sit down and say there's never been something that happened that I thought was so unique and so particular to that moment in that instance that I didn't think it was a little bit weird. You know, that's
You've
one.
never,
I
you've never had.
have. I
Okay.
have. And
Yeah.
it's one of the few things that are in that realm that I can't just go, no, I've never.
I think everybody has if they're honest about it. And
I
then
do
it's
too.
just a matter of in this world that we live in that is so fast paced and just driven by being busy all the time that people aren't, you don't slow down enough to pay attention to what's going on around you. And I think that is, that's why I love hiking so much is there's no other place. Sometimes in the car, I can quiet my mind enough to, to let a thought in because
Yeah.
all my thoughts are like, um, trips, homework, and bookstore, and what have I got to do tomorrow, and schedule, and this and that, and try to remember this, and got to pay this bill. You can't have original thought when you've got all that stuff just constantly in your head. So sometimes in the car it happens. Most often it happens when I'm hiking
It
because
always. Go ahead.
then I can really just, there's nothing I can do about it. If I'm 2 miles into the woods and I'm like, oh God, I've got to do laundry, I can't get up and do laundry. I have to let that thought go. And then, I mean, I have been to the point when I was hiking that I've looked up and been like, did I miss my trail? Have I gone too far? Like I'll be so just in the zone
I,
that
I,
that I'm not even aware
I
what's going on.
have I have this separation anxiety problem. Like as much as I like hiking, I can't think in that kind of situation because where's Ryder at? What if something happens? Like I don't know why, but if I'm home and it's 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night and Katie's in her room and Ryder's asleep and Rachel's asleep and I know where everybody is and then it's like, all right, I'm going to start
Yeah.
3 new part-time jobs, write 2 new books, and make a film right now. And but
Right.
I get what you're saying. That's in comparison to your hiking. That's my place is there.
Yeah.
And it used to be being outdoors. And you notice I don't hike as much anymore. And it's because that anxiety has crept into that and it's destroyed it. It's like took away something I really like, and I don't know. It kind of bums me out, but to hear you
Well,
say
I
that,
don't.
like I think that's the point I was at with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't hike in the summer, so I haven't hiked any since probably May. But I look forward to it. I look forward to hiking season coming back around because I haven't been riding a whole lot, and I think that's why.
I write a lot more in the winter, but I love September till January,
Well,
and
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this as a rider, and I don't know if I've asked any. I guess I have probably talked to other rider friends about it, but how often in the night do you have these thoughts like you're just kind of on the verge of being awake and you have this sentence or idea or something that comes to your mind and you're like, oh my God, that's brilliant, but you
n-
don't, if you don't get up and write it down, you don't remember it.
n- that has happened to me, and that happened. I used to be a really light sleeper, and I could remember my dreams. I would write stuff like that down. For the last probably 6, 8 years, like I don't remember dreams, and like I can even remember the notion that something happened in that dream that I want to use that phrase, or I want to use that story. I want to use that idea, or I want to think about that situation and reflect on what it meant. I mean, I literally will wake up and have the thought, man, like that meant something, and I'd like to really break that down right at the moment that I'm realizing I can't remember what it was that
Right.
meant something. So I don't do good. To me, it's always when I'm driving that that type of stuff pops in my head, and I hate, and it's weird for a podcast, I hate the sound of my voice, but I will
No, me
use the
too.
record device from time to time.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm just like, remember that, and we'll write it down later, and I never write it down
It's
because
gone.
if I don't
Yeah.
write it in that instant, if the phrasing's
Same.
off just a little bit,
Same.
it
Yeah.
changes it.
Yeah, it does. It does. It happens to me in the shower too. And those are like the two most inopportune times to be like, let me take a time out and go write this down, because most of the time I don't have the luxury of pulling off beside the road. I just
Yeah.
don't, I'm on a schedule and I don't have the time to do that, but, probably should.
Well, even the voice record, if you can do it, my accents does not work with talk to
Well,
text.
no, I mean, it doesn't understand. I mean, I've tried the notes at like the talk dictation, and then I read it back, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell that means. I mean, I don't know who said that, but it wasn't me.
I've done that too many times, and I keep downloading these different apps that say they're better and they can learn your voice. And like I
They
had
don't
one,
know.
it'd give you a word and you'd say that word, and it give the ideal in the technology is it
Yeah,
says the word the and you say the, and even if it says the and you say paint, it's supposed to think that every time you say
right,
paint it's the, it still just
right.
I do it and just the little bubbles pop up like it
Yeah,
can't,
it's
I
like
don't know.
no clue.
It's bad. I get messages all the time how I'm going to be. I need to quit this podcast because of my accent and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Look, I can't help it. I can't fix it. I don't have the desire to
No,
fix it.
there you go.
I kind of like it.
I don't want to fix it.
I don't
So
want
my
to do that.
question now is like, so what are you going to name this podcast? I mean, what is this even going to be called? This episode, I'm saying, what are you gonna? Because I don't know what just happened.
I don't have a clue. Well, so,
Right,
uh, live from the Newt Part Two because
right,
technically we're
yeah,
both there. So let's do live from the
yeah,
Newt Part Two, and then I'll
yeah,
kind of break it up. What I should have done was paused in between uh, the different sections there when we went from all music to this, and we'd had enough for two because we're pushing like 2 hours right now. See,
oh well,
it flies by when you've got somebody else to, and
yeah,
just like the live from the Newt one, it was download after download after download. People are tired of hearing me talk to myself. I'm tired of talking to myself. And like the one I done last night, I was so bummed out that I had to do it and had to do it that way. That's probably the most boring podcast of all time. But if I didn't get it out, it was going to be useless. And so I
well
had to.
then, I mean, anytime you want me back, I'm willing to, and
I think
maybe,
we need to make it a regular thing where you're on here more often
yeah,
because
sure.
now that you're
And next time
famous,
we need an outline. I feel like that to follow, and or we just
yeah. Well, usually
or
I'm
we just
so bored talking that I'll be like, yeah, that's all the time we got. Such and such is busy, and I get done that way all the time on
right,
podcasts because when I got somebody to talk to, I'll go and go and go, and then the
right,
host will go, well, that's all the time Justin has for
yeah.
today. He's got a lot going on. I don't want to keep you all day, and I'm like, oh, okay,
I'm singing you down right now. That's what this is. I'm singing you down.
all right. So it's the Red Spotted Newt, Hazard, Kentucky. Uh, the only store you can physically get my books in. It's not because I like her that much. It's because nobody else will sell my book, and I didn't have a choice. But you
Sucker.
do deliver and all that, and you're cheaper than Amazon because I made sure the price
Yeah.
difference was there. Um, you need to get this English market taken care of because I've got the spike in sales, but they ain't going to Beaver. They're going to
Right.
like,
Huge in Europe. Yeah,
I'm
huge
huge.
in Europe.
I'm a regular Spinal Tap in Europe. I
Mm.
mean, I got the mini Stonehenge and all, but
Right. We've turned it up to 11 overseas. I
yeah,
mean,
over there they go up to
right.
11. Over here it only goes
Yeah.
up to 10. Um,
Right.
but the email for this show is talkjunkie@gmail.com. I had some I was going to read, and Brad, I told you I would read your message on here, and I forgot, and I didn't do it, so I'll read it on the next one. Nobody ever makes it to the end of the episode anyway, so nobody hears this crap.
Especially this one.
No, I'm telling you, this will be one of my best ones. I bet
Yeah.
Ambier makes it all the way to the end.
Oh yeah.
There's the only Ambier shout out. The only Amber shout out of the whole show was right at the end. There's a new website for the show. There's actually a Facebook now for the show. I just used my Instagram, which was, I think it's author J Perkins on Instagram. Um, but I actually have all those things for the show, and they're all on YouTube. And this episode will be on YouTube. So if you're listening to this at this time um, as a podcast, you're an hour and 42 minutes too late. But if you'd actually listen to it on YouTube instead, which comes up like a day later, you would have got to see all the all the video elements. Which I think I only did the church lady one. They couldn't see anything else. I was only going to
And
sit on the side.
this beautiful.
Oh, and the
fire.
beautiful fire. I mean, we have, and the fact that I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get a green screen or something. I want to blend in because there's
Yeah.
cooler ones
I
than
mean,
this.
this is nice.
Well, next time we'll do it in the mountains. If I can get this green screen deal set up, I got one that's like it's got a
Yeah.
hiking trail. Thank you very much.
Nice.
It's been really fun.
Thank you.
And I'll get up with you next day. You can do this again. We'll try to do it again.
Sure.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks.